in the last stream, we were working, of course, on setting up our very first bee area, our very first beehive, and spawning in our bees, breeding our bees, and using those bees to generate honeycombs that we can then use to process into beeswax, into sugar, and into bottles of honey. What I've gone ahead and done between streams is I've expanded this room out. This room is now much larger. Essentially, the basic item collector here has a collection radius of 5 blocks, and so I've made a room that is 5 blocks out in each direction. So in theory, any honeycomb that is dropped anywhere in this room should be collectible by this basic item collector and deposited down into this drawer here. As you can see, the bees have been working away since the end of the last stream, and we now have a grand total of 462 honeycombs ready to be processed and used really however we like. Now, I have had quite a few people in both the Twitch chat and the YouTube comments comment on the use of this redstone setup that we have right here, because whilst it does work and whilst it is fairly efficient at harvesting the hive whenever it's ready to be harvested, it's also a pretty bulky system and one that isn't really too easy to duplicate for a ton of beehives. It also has the slight downside, of course, in that you have to constantly replenish the shears in the dispenser beneath it. As people have pointed out, we can instead use the scraper from the resourceful bees mod. You can right-click this onto a tiered beehive to collect honeycombs. It must collect all the honeycombs for the bees to begin to generate new ones. So the scraper, super easy to use, 2 sticks and 3 iron, and the benefit really of this guy is that it doesn't lose durability. So you can put this into a dispenser and it will work forever, which is super nice. The redstone clock here will emit a redstone signal however frequently you tell it to emit a redstone signal, and to make it, it is 4 iron, 4 redstone, and 1 redstone comparator. All of that stuff we should have. I haven't done any more sifting between streams, but I have gone ahead and put down some more drawers here for gravel, sand, and dust, and right now we have about 500 of each, just in case we do need those at some point throughout the course of today's stream. And I think I am going to go ahead and basically get rid of this setup that we have here with the cobblestone and the comparator, because the clock here should be able to provide that function in a much more compact area. So we'll probably move this beehive as well, because right now it's not really in an optimal position, and I'll probably also put down some more flowers in that room as well to, just increase the number of flowers that the bees can go to. But for now, back over here, what we should be able to do is grab some sticks and get a scraper, and we should also be able to make a redstone clock. Nice. So the idea here is that we're going to have, let's say 3 or let's say 4 dispensers. So we have 4 dispensers like this. Of course, we'll bury them in the ground like we have done with the dispenser beneath this beehive. We're then going to have 4 hives on top of those, like so. Each one of the dispensers will have a scraper in it. And then between all of those dispensers, we can place down this redstone clock. And in here, you can set how frequently you want the redstone clock to emit a redstone signal. By default, it's set to 60 ticks. There are 20 ticks per second in Minecraft, and so right now it is going to emit a redstone signal every 3 seconds. You can set the power anywhere from 1 up to 15, where you're going to leave it all the way up at the max, and then you can set the duration that the redstone signal is going to remain on for. Again, right now it's set to 3 seconds. And so I think if we would just bring this down and we say go for about 20 ticks and 20 ticks on the duration as well, what this should do is basically every second that's going to emit a redstone signal. And so what should happen, I believe, is the bees will do their work, the honey level will go up. If the scrapers are used on the hive when the honey level is below 5, nothing happens. Like, the beehives just keep doing their thing, and it's basically as if nothing is done. Once the beehive gets to honey level 5, the scrapers will begin taking the honey level down one by one. So it'll go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, each time taking out combs. Once it gets back down to 0, the bees will begin doing their thing again, producing honey, raising the honey level, and then the whole process will repeat again. That's the plan at least. And so I think what we want to do for now is basically, once again, get rid of all the flowers here. In the morning, when all the bees come out of the beehive, we probably want to try and collect them all in bee jars so that they don't get angry and don't die. And then we'll upgrade the beehives we have here to tier 2, much like this beehive, and we'll put down 4 new beehives over, like, right about here, again, just embedded in the floor with the new clock system, and hopefully we should start getting our honeycombs about 4 times as fast. So not too long later, and we have all of our bees in jars here. I thought I had more than 5, but I guess not. Maybe I lost a few between streams while rebuilding this room here. I was quite careful when I was placing all this stuff down to try and keep the bees from escaping, but maybe I failed in that regard. Either way, we currently have 5 bees. We can, of course, get more bees going forward. But for now, what we need to do is we need to grab our manual centrifuge, and we need to process these honeycombs here, because right now we've got 1 tier 2 beehive and 5 more tier 1 beehives. And I kind of want to get down 4 of the highest tier of hive that we can. And I think it's possible that we could get at least 1 tier 4 beehive, because if we look at the recipe for the tier 3 hive, it requires the tier 2 hive there we have with 4 blocks of honeycomb. The blocks of honeycomb are actually kind of the easiest part here, because you can just craft 4 honeycomb into a block of honeycomb nice and easily. And the harder part here is the beeswax. We also need 4 blocks of beeswax, which means in total we're going to have to get 36 beeswax. And given that the beeswax is only a 25% drop chance from the honeycomb, that means that we are going to have to process about 120 honeycomb to get the amount of beeswax required for 1 tier 3 hive. So quite a bit of centrifuging later, and we do have 36 beeswax as well as 26 honey bottles here. And so what we should be able to do is, if we go and craft the beeswax into beeswax blocks, and we craft some of the honey bottles here into honey blocks, I think we can go all the way up to a tier 4 beehive, because the tier 3 beehive is 4 honeycomb blocks, 4 beeswax blocks, and the tier 2 hive. And then for the tier 4 beehive, we need the tier 3 beehive, another 4 honeycomb blocks, and then 4 honey blocks, which we do now have. So all we should really have to do is grab 16 more honeycombs, craft those up into blocks, and at that point, chat, I think we should be good to go. We are. Nice. And these ones can hold up to 16 bees and can produce a maximum of 20 honeycombs at a time, and have a hive time modification of 20%, which I believe means that they take 20% less time inside the hive to actually produce the honey. And I do believe that that is the highest tier of beehive that we can get before moving on to apiaries. So for now, we can throw down this tier 4 hive, maybe like right about here, and I will put the scraper that we made down right about there. And let me reset these numbers here now that we've moved the clock. It's a little annoying. You can't drag this. You have to just click. Oh, wait. Arrow keys, hold, shift, alt. Oh, the game actually tells you how to do it, chat. I'm just a fool. There we go. So originally, I was going to put down multiple tier 4 hives, or multiple hives in general. But right now, given that we don't have 16 bees, and given that this can hold 16 bees, I don't really see much of a reason to put down, or to work in getting any more beehives until we get up to 16 bees. So real quick, let's put down 2 bees and quickly breed those guys together. We'll then do the same thing with 2 more bees here. And then at that point, I think we should probably look at a few things. I do want to look at getting some power, and I do want to look at getting an automated centrifuge here, so we don't have to manually turn all of our honeycombs into beeswax and honey. But I also want to look at duplicating these poppies and dandelions, because if we're going to fill this room up here, and if we're going to continue to breed our bees to get, up to 16 for this beehive here, we're going to have to get quite a few more of the poppies and of the dandelions. And one pretty nifty block that people have recommended I use for a little while now is the botany pot. So I'll throw a few of these down. I will keep 1 of each poppy and dandelion. But if we head out here, we do have a mod installed called botany pots. And these botany pots kind of work similar to how bonsai pots worked in previous versions of Minecraft, in that they allow you to automatically grow different items. So, for example, we can put a poppy into a botany pot, that poppy will grow, and when it's fully grown, we can harvest like an extra poppy from it, and then it will start growing again, and you can kind of continually harvest new poppies from that one poppy. What makes things even better is if we use a hopper botany pot, we can do that automatically. So the botany pots are actually super easy to make. The regular ones are made with 5 terracotta and 1 flower pot, which is just brick, and then the hopping botany pot is a regular botany pot with a hopper. So what we should be able to do here is we should be able to get quite a bit of clay fairly quickly. And that does remind me, actually, we could look at getting a little bit of automation going here, because we do have the sink in the pack from Cooking for Blockheads, and this is a block that provides infinite water and is also not too difficult to make. It's 3 iron, 1 bucket of water, and 5 terracotta. So I think what we'll do here is we'll grab, for now at least, 5 dust. We'll also grab our bucket, which should be lying around over here somewhere. We can then, of course, get quite a few blocks of clay here fairly quickly. We can then smelt those up. While we're waiting for those to smelt up, let's go ahead and grab a bucket of water and 3 iron ingots, which we already have. And at that point, the sink should be good to go. Actually, I think we are going to need at least 1 more clay block here, because if we want true automation, we're going to have to get a way to automatically pull water out of the sink. So I'll bookmark the sink, and let's go and look at fluid pipes from Cyclic. These are going to allow us to extract the water from the sink and pump it around into the wooden barrels automatically. So the pipes here are actually pretty easy to make. They require 4 gold nuggets and then 4 brick stairs. That does mean we are going to have to get 6 clay here, so actually 1 more block of clay is going to be required. We'll then craft those down and quickly smelt those up over here somewhere. While we're waiting for that, we can craft up the sink. And as I mentioned before, the sink does essentially work as an infinite water source in and of itself. We don't need this anymore, because now if we put down the sink and we right click, we get a bucket of water. We could dump that out, do it again. We get infinite water from the sink here. For the pipes, we are also going to need 4 nuggets of gold. Right now, I don't think we have any gold smelted. However, we do have 25 gold ore, and we can, of course, craft that up with our ore crushing hammer here to get even more gold. We'll give that a smelt over here. And unfortunately, the way that the cables work from Cyclic, we are going to have a wrench if we want to be able to extract from the sink. Thankfully, though, the wrench is pretty easy to make. It requires 2 sticks, 2 redstone, and 1 iron pressure plate. So if we do something like this, and like this, we should be pretty much good to go, I think, now. Let's get some brick stairs. Let's craft up some fluid cable. So I did miscalculate here. I thought that I was going to get 4 brick stairs from 6 bricks, which is never the case. And as chat has handily pointed out, one of the new blocks in 1.16 Minecraft is the stone cutter, this guy right here, which is super easy to make. It requires 3 stone and 1 iron. Boom. And with this, what we can do is we can take our bricks here, craft them up into bricks, and then in the stone cutter, we can actually turn 1 brick into 1 brick stair, which is a better conversion than this, because here, this recipe is 6 bricks to 4 brick stairs. So we get a 1-to-1 as opposed to a 6-to-4, which is slightly better, and does mean that we now have 4 brick stairs in total, so we can pivot back over to the fluid cable, which we should now have pretty much everything to make. Nice. So back over here, what we can now do is if, for example, we were to get a hopper, we can then move one of our barrels up by 1. Let's say we move this wooden barrel up. We'll put the hopper beneath it. We will put the wooden barrel right about here. Then let's say we move the sink. And for now, we can put this down maybe right about here. And we can use fluid cable to connect up to the wooden barrel. We can then use our wrench, and if we right-click on the side that connects to the sink, that's going to change it from being a standard cable to extracting. And at that point, the water is being funneled over to the wooden barrel. So now, if we wanted to, we could just right-click here continually and get clay. But even more than that, if we wanted to fully automate it, we could then make, for example, another hopper, stick that hopper on top of the barrel, fill that barrel up with dust, and we would automatically be generating clay for us to use in the future. Like that. And let's go and grab maybe a stack of dust here. Actually, let's do 32. I don't know if we're going to need that much clay. But if we put 32 in there, that's going to slowly but surely trickle down into actual clay that we can use going forward, which is super useful because I think we are going to want to get quite a few of, or at least a couple, of these botany pots. So once we have the terracotta that we need here, we should then be able to actually start making these botany pots. So let's get a flower pot and a botany pot. And if we craft that with the hopper, we get the hopper botany pot. And so now I think what we probably want to do is grab another storage door. And with this, what we can do is, let's say we put this down, maybe over here for now. If we put down the drawer, you can do the same with the chest as well, but I think the drawer works well for this. We can put the hopper botany pot directly above it. And let's say that we wanted to get more poppies, right? Because we're going to use the poppies to breed our bees, and we also use them to generate honey. We need to have like a bunch of them down on the ground to actually make honey. We can also use them to make things like floral fertilizer and all that jazz. What we can do here is we can grab one dirt, put that dirt into the botany pot, and then if we right-click the poppy onto that botany pot, you'll see at the top there, the poppy begins to grow, and there's a growth timer of 1 minute. Once that 1 minute has passed, or once the progress gets up to 100, one poppy will be deposited down in the drawer here, and the poppy that's already in the botany pot will automatically begin the process again. We'll start at 0, progress up to 100, and continue to do that, continue producing poppies over and over and over again until we get to 2048, and the drawer is full. Chat is pointing out that you can use different blocks in the botany pot. Like we've used dirt here, which has a growth modifier of 0. There are better options that you can put in there, but right now I don't really think that we have the ability to make many of these. Like grass, for example, is something you could put in here to make it grow faster, but until we get some kind of silk touch, or until we get into the mods that allow us to actually make grass, like Astral Sorcery and Blood Magic, I think dirt is kind of the best option that we have. And you'll see already that we have 2 poppies in here, and we can just leave this going. This will just continually, forever, make poppies, and you can actually do the same thing with dandelions, of course, but even further, if we shift right-click to take that out, you can also do this with Botania flowers. So if, for example, we wanted more mystical white flowers, you can, in fact, just plant those in, and over time, that will grow into more mystical white flowers that we can then use, for all kinds of Botania purposes. You can even use saplings and all kinds of stuff. If we look at the botany pot here in JEI, you'll see that there are 54 pages of things that can be planted in the botany pot. Looking back at it, I probably should have used the botany pot for making netherwort in the last episode, because we spent way too much time waiting for our netherwort to grow when we could have just put netherwort and soul sand into the botany pot, and after 1 minute 20, we would have been guaranteed to get, there would have been a 75% chance for us to get 1 extra netherwort. Now that we have this set up, we can leave this running, doing its thing. Let's take a look at seeing if we can't automate the centrifuge process. So I've made this lower platform here, and my plan is to hopefully begin collecting all of the honeycombs that are produced in this room, piping them down into one of these centrifuges, which will automatically begin processing them. We don't have to stand there and shift right click to process the honeycomb. However, if we're going to do that, we first need to get the actual centrifuge itself, and on top of that, we're also going to have to get some kind of power to actually run the centrifuge. And I think that the earliest power generation that we can get comes from the power mod in the form of the Furnator, which is, I believe, a hybrid between the words furnace and generator, and is essentially a block that will generate redstone flux if you provide it with some kind of fuel, wooden planks, charcoal, regular coal, etc. To make the Furnator, the starter version, you need dielectric paste, a furnace, 2 basic capacitors, and 1 dielectric casing. All of these require, at their heart, dielectric paste. And dielectric paste is made by dropping coal or charcoal into a mana pool. And if we quickly take a look at the Botania questline here, you'll see that right about here is a quest for dielectric paste. So we have to make our way through to this quest, and at that point we will then unlock the power questline, and we can begin working on that Furnator. So the next quest in the Botania questline here is for the flower pouch. This is a pretty nifty item that makes it a little easier to hold all of the different Botania flowers. I believe there are 16 in total, correlating to the different Minecraft colors, and the pouch itself is actually pretty easy to make. I believe it's 5 wool with 1 mystical petal of any color. We have 2 mystical light blue petals ready to go, and so we should be able to make a flower pouch right away here. We can indeed. So if we, for example, use our floral fertilizer here, and then we break the flowers, I'm pretty sure that they automatically now go into that flower pouch as opposed to filling up your inventory. So that's a nice to have. The next quest up here is to collect one of each mystical flower. I don't think that's strictly necessary to progress on into Botania, but it also shouldn't really be too difficult for us to do. We essentially just have to get a bunch of bone meal that we can then craft up into floral fertilizer using the petals that we're going to get from these flowers, much like we did in a previous stream. Okay, so the chat has pointed out a super handy tip here. If you put down the petals, like we did previously, you can then tap the shift key like you would to grow a tree to rapidly grow these tall mystical flowers, thus eliminating the need for bone meal. At that point, we can, of course, harvest them all by holding down the ultimine key and using our shears. And at that point, we can get a ton of mystical petals super easily. And that's going to make getting a large amount of floral fertilizer to get all of the different mystical flowers here much, much easier. So a bunch of floral fertilizer later, and we now have one of each flower. The quest has not complete, but I believe that's because all of the petals, all of the flowers, I should say, are currently in the pouch. I think if we take all these out and put them all back, we will complete the quest here. Yeah, that is done. Perfect. And so at that point, the next quest along in the line is the Petal Apothecary, which is a super easy but extremely useful block that is made with 4 cobblestone, 2 cobblestone slabs, and then any mystical petal. So let's quickly grab some cobblestone here. We'll make cobblestone slabs. We'll do 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the petal. And there we go. And for now, I guess we'll put this down maybe right about here, near the water. Because the way that the Petal Apothecary works is that you can put water into it, like so. Unfortunately, I don't believe that you can automatically pump water into the Petal Apothecary, at least not through pipage, like this, like these don't connect. You can automate the placing of water into the Petal Apothecary later on down the line, but you can't do it with pipes like this one from Cyclic here. For now, though, we are going to just do it with a bucket. I think if you just drop a bucket on, yeah, it does fill it up, so you can kind of automate it like that in the future. But for now, essentially, we can use the Petal Apothecary to make flowers. Not the kind of flowers we've been using up until now, the mystical flowers, but other kind of flowers that we can actually use to do things with. For example, this flower right here, the Pure Daisy, is going to allow us to make living rock and living wood, which is the direct quest after that. So to make the Pure Daisy, we need 4 mystical white petals in the Petal Apothecary. So let's grab our flower pouch. Let's take 2 mystical white flowers, craft those down into 4 white petals, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. We just drop them in to the Petal Apothecary, and you'll see now that it says plus seed to get the flower. So all we have to do is take any seed that we have. Right now we've got a stack and a half of vanilla wheat seeds, so we can take those and drop those in as well. And boom, we get a Pure Daisy. Nice. And for now, we can go ahead and put this down, let's say right about here. So with this guy, what we can do is we can place down either stone or wood if we're looking to get living rock or living wood. I believe it'll show us in JEI. We can turn regular wood or granite or jasper into living rock. And if we look at the recipe for living wood here, we can turn any log, whether it be crimson or dark oak or regular oak, into living wood. And to get started, given that the next quest wants us to make a mana pool, we should probably look to get at least 5 living rock. We're going to need both, but we'll start by putting down 8 stone around the Pure Daisy here. 8 being, I believe, the maximum that you can do at any one time. If you try and put blocks down like here, it's not going to actually transform. It has to be right next to the Pure Daisy. I believe this process here takes about 1 minute, maybe just over 1 minute. And so this should be done basically any second now. And then at that point, we can make a mana pool and look at getting our first bits of dielectric paste. So I will take all of these. We'll go ahead and throw down 8 logs to get our first 8 living wood, which we're also going to use momentarily here. Like so. And let's craft up that mana pool. And then now, if we want to get dielectric paste, we have to throw coal into the mana pool, but crucially, the mana pool has to have some mana in it. And you'll see this bar here represents how full the mana pool is. And so if this bar was fully blue, that would mean that we need a full mana pool's worth of mana. This bar is barely even showing blue, which indicates that we need a very, very, very small amount of mana in order to actually turn regular coal into dielectric paste, which is perfect for us because we don't really have any mana at the moment. But essentially, it means we are going to have to start generating mana, and for that, we're going to need a generating flower, a flower that can generate mana. And the quest book has 4 of them here: the Endoflame, the Rosa Arcana, the Gomerilius, and the Kekimuras. And these 4 flowers will all generate mana. There are more as well in Botania, but these are the 4 in the quest book right now. The Endoflame produces mana from fuel. The Rosa Arcana, I believe, generates mana from experience. So if a player stands nearby with experience, it will drain it out of the player. If you just drop experience in the form of like experience bottles nearby, it will also pull those in as well. The Gomerilius uses food, and the Kekimuras uses cakes, specifically cakes. The Gomerilius can use any food. Eventually, it is probably going to be a good idea for us to look at getting some of these higher tier flowers, like the Gomerilius or the Kekimuras. However, I think to start with, we kind of have to go with the Endoflame. The Endoflame is made with 2 brown petals, 1 red petal, and 1 light gray petal, whereas something like the Gomerilius here is made with gray petals, yellow petals, red petals, and then both a Rune of Summer and a Rune of Fire, which are rather more expensive recipes that I don't really think we have the ingredients or the setup to make just yet. And those recipes in and of themselves do also require mana. We need mana in order to make those runes. So to start with, we'll go with the Endoflames. So we need to get brown petals, red petals, and light gray petals. Okay, so once we have a good amount of petals of the brown, red, and light gray variety, what we can do here is we can take some seeds, and over in the Petal Apothecary, this is actually set up pretty well to make a large amount of the same flower. So what we can do is we can drop in 2 brown, 1 red, and 1 light gray petal. At that point, what we can do is we can get our seed, we can drop it in, and we get our first Endoflame. Now, if you want to make another copy of the same flower, you can take some water, put it in, and the text did appear there for a brief second, but essentially if you double right click, it will take the required petals from your inventory, put them in the Petal Apothecary, and at that point all you have to do is again drop the seed in, and you're good to go. So you can double right click, drop the seed in, double right click, double right click, drop the seed in, and we can get a bunch of Endoflames nice and quickly. Cool. So we have 7. I'm going to keep at least 1 light gray petal and 1 red petal, so in the future we can make more of those, should we like. But what we can do now is we can begin to use these to actually generate mana. So I do think we were given a Lexica Botania at some point. We were. If you have the Lexica Botania in your inventory and you hover over an item from Botania, you'll see next to my chest plate, there's like a little book with a question mark. If you hold down Control, it will open the Lexica Botania to the page of the item that you're hovering over, and you can read up on what that does in particular. So yeah, the Endoflame will produce mana when you drop fuel next to it. However, in order to actually get the mana from the Endoflame to a mana pool to be usable, you have to get a mana spreader. So the mana spreader, which I would assume there's a quest for, there is, it's up here, is pretty easy to make. It is 6 living wood, 1 gold ingot, and 1 of any colored petal. As luck would have it, we have exactly 1 gold ingot, and we have a multitude of petals, so getting a mana spreader here really shouldn't be too difficult. And so at that point, we could, if we wanted to, set up a very basic system where you have a Endoflame, a mana spreader, and a mana pool. Now, if you've not played with Botania before, these can be a bit unintuitive sometimes. If you put the mana spreader down first and then put down the Endoflame will automatically link to the mana spreader. If you do it the other way around, if you put down the Endoflame first and then put down the mana spreader, the Endoflame will not be linked to the mana spreader. That's not a huge deal, because you can link an Endoflame to a mana spreader, but to do that, you do require a Wander the Forest, which again is another quest that we have right here, and in general, you're probably going to want to get a Wander the Forest anyway. To make a Wander the Forest, we do require a little bit more living wood, which is why I've put down more wood around my Pure Daisy here. It's made with 3 living wood twigs, each of which are made with living wood, so we need 6 living wood in total, with 2 of any colored petal. For now, I guess we're going to go with brown and yellow. Okay, so our living wood, again, is done. Chat has convinced me that because we're playing a B mod pack, we should go with black and yellow for our wand here. So if we get 3 living wood twigs, we can throw those in like so, and then do black and yellow and get our bumblebee themed wand of the forest. So you'll see right now, if we hover over the Endoflame while holding the wand of the forest, these are linked. The Endoflame, the mana spreader there has like an outline around it showing it's linked. If we were to break this and then put this down, let's say like right here, you'll see it's not linked. This has got like a little X over that mana spreader icon at the end of the bar. If you see this, you can shift right click on the Endoflame and then shift right click on the mana spreader, and that will link it to whichever mana spreader you want to link it to. Either way, at this point in time, what we could do is we could put down our mana pool, let's say right about here. Again, you can do the same thing where you shift right click and shift right click. This mana pool is now linked, this mana spreader is now linked to this mana pool, and this Endoflame is linked to this mana spreader. So now, if we were to drop any kind of fuel down next to the Endoflame would pick up the fuel, and it gets a little burning animation to show you that it's currently working through that fuel there. And as it burns that fuel, it produces mana that it sends over to the mana spreader, and you'll see that little green bar there is filling up, and the mana spreader shoots it over to the mana pool. And you'll see there's a little bit of mana in the pool, and there's a tiny little bit of blue on that bar. And given that the dielectric paste here doesn't actually require that much mana, we might already have enough. I'd be surprised if we do, but just to get an idea, let's see. Oh, we do, look at that, boom. So it requires like 1 plank worth of fuel to make 1 dielectric paste. And in fact, let's have a look. Can we make another one? I'd be surprised. We totally can. So you can make 3 dielectric paste from 1 oak plank's worth of mana, and hopefully that just goes to show how little mana you need to make the dielectric paste. However, with that in mind, we do need quite a lot of dielectric paste, and so we're probably going to want to put down a bunch of Endoflames, which is why I made 7 of them, and see if we can't get quite a bit of mana into the mana pool here. Also, I forgot to mention it, chat, but I did do a bit of base work between streams, and we do have these cobblestone bricks now from Quark. These are pretty easy to make. It's just 4 cobblestone crafted into bricks. These I think they look quite nice, given that they don't actually require like any smelting or any expensive resources to make, and so for the time being, I've just thrown those down. So a little while later, we've got this little platform now for our Botania setup. Hopefully, eventually the grass will spread over. But we have all of our Endoflames with our mana spreader, producing mana in the mana pool. And one thing we can do here if we want is we can set up a little bit of an automatic fuel dropping system to kind of automate the production of mana, even if it's in a very small way. So one thing we can do if we'd like is we can make the open crate from Botania. This is made with 7 living wood planks. Living wood planks we can get by crafting down living wood, like so. From there, we can make, let's say, just a regular old wooden pressure plate. And the nifty thing about the open crate is that the open crate will just instantly drop any item that is placed within it. So let's say that, for example, we steal this hopper over here. What we should be able to do is we should be able to put down the open crate above the pressure plate, like so. I just shift right clicked. And now any item that is placed into the hopper should get sent through to the open crate and instantly dropped down. So all we want to do from here, or what we can do from here, I should say, is we can set up a system that drops down fuel when the Endoflame is needed. Because right now we have 7 Endoflames. If all of the Endoflames have fuel, then any excess fuel will just sit on the ground. So for example, let's say I throw down 45 oak planks. Right away, 7 of those will be taken and mana will be produced, but the remaining 38 will just stay on the ground, right? What we can do here is we can use the pressure plate to detect when there is excess fuel being left on the ground and use that to turn off the hopper here, thus preventing more fuel from being sent through to the open crate. So all we should really need to do is get a little bit of redstone and a few redstone torches to make this work. So I think a system like this is pretty good. So I've moved the open crate and the hopper up by 1 block. And essentially right now we have 1 piece of redstone going into this cobblestone brick here. On the back side of that, we have a redstone torch. So whenever this pressure plate is activated, that turns this torch off. We then have a redstone torch above this redstone torch. So when this one is off, this one is on. If we pick that up, this one goes off. and this one goes on. Perfect. And so when these are off, the hopper works fine. So any fuel that is in here will be fed into the open crate and drop down onto the pressure plate to be picked up by the Endoflames. Once all of the Endoflames have fuel, the next piece of wood will be dropped, but then because that piece of wood does not get taken away, the redstone system will turn off the hopper and prevent more wood from being funneled in. And so what we should be able to do here is essentially put like a chest or a crate above this hopper, fill it with fuel, and over time that fuel is going to be slowly but surely kind of drip fed down to the Endoflames to produce us like a mana pool worth of mana. So let's quickly craft up a chest. We do thankfully have a good amount of wood over in here, so we can go and craft down a bunch of planks for fuel. People did mention that going forward, we can get things like the coal bee, and in the next stream, we will be looking at breeding bees and crafting up some bee eggs to get some of the different bees like the coal bee, but later on down the line, we can get coal bees, we can use those to make these coal honeycombs, and we can process those to get coal, which we could then automatically feed into a system like this to basically get infinite mana going forward. For the time being, though, if we just put a regular chest down right about here and fill that up with wood, like so, that should slowly but surely get us a decent amount of mana. Now that we have that, we can take a look at the Powah quest line, which we've now unlocked. So the first quest here is just a checkmark quest, and we do get the guidebook here from Powah, the manual, which will walk us through all of the different generators and all of the different functioning blocks that we can get from the Powah mod. The first thing that I think we should look to make, though, is some kind of generator that can fuel the Centrifuge. Now, initially, I was looking at the Fernator, which might not be a bad idea. It's definitely not a bad fuel source. And again, much like with the Endoflames, we could use coal bees to automatically power the Fernator going forward. However, people did also point out that there is a Magmator, this guy right here, which is essentially the same thing. It's a generator that produces redstone flux, but instead of using fuel, this uses lava. So what we could do is we could make a Magmator, and there are multiple tiers, by the way, much like with the Fernator. You start out at starter, and then it goes to basic, hardened, blazing, Niotic, spirited, and then nitro right at the end. The nitro Magmator produces 4,800 redstone flux per tick. By the way, redstone flux, and so occasionally you'll see FE per tick, so FE/T, and sometimes you'll see RF/T. They both mean the same thing, they're interchangeable. So when I say redstone flux per tick, that's the same as FE per tick, which I believe is forge energy per tick. But essentially, what we could do is we could begin automatically pumping the cobblestone out of our cobblestone generator. And again, we can make as many of these as we like. So we can begin pumping the cobblestone out of our cobblestone generator, round into our fired crucibles that are now on top of these blocks of uranium. That's then going to in turn produce lava that we could then extract using these fluid cables into a Magmator for infinite power with essentially free lava. So for the Magmator here, let me bookmark the starter version for now. I think we do want to try and go for the basic version as soon as possible, because I think the starter version here, generating 15 FE per tick, can't keep up with even a basic centrifuge. So I think we want to try and get to the basic version as soon as possible, but you do have to have the starter version to make the basic version. So the basic version here requires 5 dielectric paste, 1 bucket, 2 basic capacitors, and 1 dielectric casing. The basic capacitor is made by crafting down, the tiny basic capacitors are made by crafting down a regular basic capacitor. This is made from 4 iron ingots, 1 block of redstone, and 2 more dielectric paste. You get 4 at a time. And then the dielectric casing is made with iron ingots and then 2 horizontal dielectric rods and 2 regular or vertical dielectric rods. Both of these are made in pretty much the same way, with 6 dielectric paste and 3 iron bars. The horizontal version just made the other way around, and you can craft a regular version into a horizontal version if you'd like. So basically, we need a bunch of iron, a little bit of redstone, and a ton of dielectric paste. Thankfully, now that we have our automatic Botania setup, we should be able to take like 43 coal here and essentially just drop that in to our mana pool, and hopefully a good amount of that will get turned into dielectric paste. And by a good amount, I of course mean all of it will get turned into dielectric paste, which is very nice indeed. And I think at that point, the only thing we're really missing is maybe a little bit of redstone and a bunch of iron, Unfortunately, we are out of iron right now. However, we do have about 500 gravel, and so I think, once again, chat, it's time for a little bit of sifting. It's probably at this point also worth looking at investing in a diamond mesh. Not only do we start getting little bits of uranium from Powah, but we also have just a higher chance of getting iron. Like, the 2 drop chances are the same, but we have an extra drop chance of getting iron as well. So right now we have a 15% and a 10%. If we upgrade to diamond, we have a 15, a 25, and a 10. So I think it's definitely worth investing 6 of our diamonds in upgrading this iron stiffened mesh here into a diamond stiffened mesh. I should also check if there's any upgrade going to emerald. There isn't. So the diamond stiffened mesh, for gravel at least, is exactly the same in terms of iron as the emerald stiffened mesh. Okay, so a good amount of gravel sifting later, and we now have some iron ready to go here. I also did a bit of dust sifting as well, so we do have more redstone. And so we should be able, I think, to make this magmator here. So let's start by making some iron bars. Let's get, I guess we'll go and do like this to get the horizontal bars, and we'll also do the same thing, I think, for the vertical bars as well. From there, we'll go and make 2 dielectric casing if we can, because we're going to need 1 for the next tier of magmator as well. We can then make a block of redstone. From there, we can get a batch of basic capacitors. We can craft 1 of those down into 2 tiny capacitors, and at that point, we have the basic magmator. From there, we should be able to upgrade that to a regular magmator without having to craft anything else, because this one is the same recipe essentially, but with basic capacitors instead of tiny ones. And at that point, this guy is able to produce 70 redstone blocks per tick. If we want to upgrade to the hardened tier, we would have to get energized steel, which requires the energizer, and is a little bit outside of the realm of what we can do at this moment in time. So I'm thinking, chat, that we do have a little bit of lava already in here. I guess we could, if we wanted to, move that over so as not to waste it. We should also actually look at making the actual centrifuge itself, which is made with 5 iron, 1 piston, 2 smooth stone, and 1 bucket. I think we do have some stone lying around. We do indeed. Let's go and smelt that up into smooth stone. Once that smooth stone is done, and once we have a piston, we can make that centrifuge right there. It says converts honeycombs into resources using RF. We have now used both of our buckets though, so we are going to have to grab a new one. But essentially, chat, my plan here is I'm going to move down this drawer. So thankfully, in newer versions of storage drawers, or maybe it's just a config option, but in this pack at least, you can move the storage drawer even if it has items inside of it. So let me quickly grab a new X. And if we go ahead and break this drawer, in previous versions of Minecraft, if you broke this, the items would spew everywhere. Thankfully, at least in this pack, that does not appear to be the case. But essentially, I'm thinking what we're going to do is we're going to just move this down by 1 into the ground. So we're going to have the drawer there with the item collector on top of it, like so. That's going to allow us, using the item cable from Cyclic, which is basically the exact same thing as the fluid cable we used earlier for our sink setup, but this time with iron nuggets and, of course, moving items instead, we're going to extract the items from this drawer, and I'll put like a piece of dirt here to exemplify where the cable is going to go. We're going to have a cable that pulls items down from there, down and into the centrifuge. And I think we probably want to go 1 block further down. And in fact, let's just go and see if we can't make those cables, shall we? So once again, we'll do bricks into the stone cutter, into brick stairs, and then this time around we need iron nuggets. But that should be pretty much everything for the item cable. Nice. We are going to need the wrench again. That is fine. So let's go ahead and get rid of this grass here real quick. We will extract down from this drawer and into a basic centrifuge, like this. And then from there, we're going to extract once again, and we'll pull that down probably into a crate. So up until now, we've been using drawers and we've been using chests. However, we do have crates available to us from Quantum Storage, and they're not too difficult to make. They're a little pricey, but nothing too crazy. So if we go ahead and get 24 planks here, we can make 3 chests. And at that point, so long as you don't place them down, we should be able to make an iron storage crate with 2 iron, 4 planks, and 3 chests, like so. And I believe this is essentially like a slightly larger regular chest. Yeah, it's like a regular chest, but with an extra line of storage. However, we can upgrade this yet further. We can make it into a gold storage chest, which is the exact same thing, but this time requiring 2 gold ingots, which again, we should be able to do fairly easily if we smelt up some gold over here. And that's going to be even larger. And then from there, we could even take it one step further and get a diamond storage crate, which I think is probably worth it. We do have 9 diamonds, and the diamonds are not too difficult for us to get now that we have a good way of making cobble and therefore gravel, and we have the new diamond mesh as well, getting even more diamonds from all the gravel that we sift. So if we take the 2 gold here, we are going to need some more planks, but that is extremely doable. We can take our regular crate, upgrade it into a gold crate, and then from there upgrade it into a diamond crate, which has a significantly larger inventory space than even the double chests that we have over here. And the reason that I've done this is that the centrifuge that we're about to set up is going to produce both 3 things. It's going to produce sugarcane, it's going to produce honeycomb, and it's going to produce honey bottles. So I think, for now at least, having a large crate like this should allow us to store all of that, hopefully fairly effectively. Let's go ahead and set this guy here to extract. That's not quite right. Like that. Right-clicking right at the top there. And then we'll also set this right here as well to extract. And at that point, all we have to do is power the centrifuge, which we should be able to do by putting the magmator down right next to it. I believe the power will transfer directly from the magmator over into the centrifuge. We can test this by getting a bucket of lava and throwing it over into the magmator. Like so. So now we should see redstone flux being generated, and you'll see that over here the centrifuge is beginning to fill up with power, and slowly but surely all of the honeycombs here are being processed into sugar, into beeswax, and if we turn that off real quick, what we also want to do is we want to get bottles in there to hopefully produce honey as well. So if we do hopper and glass bottles, those should be funneled in as well, at which point we should be able to turn that back on. So yeah, going forward, we can have all of our honeycomb automatically processed into honey bottles and beeswax, as opposed to manually taking all the honeycomb and trying to process it through the manual centrifuge that we have over in here, requiring us to move the comb over manually and then hold shift right click to work through it all. It's definitely slower, but having it automated should make our lives a whole heck of a lot easier going forward. So I think that's probably going to do it for today's stream chat. Next time, we're going to come back. We're going to, I think, begin looking at these 11 bees right here. The marble, sand, cobblestone, coal, gravel, dust, sieve, RGB, IC, zombie, and snowball bee. If we can get all of those bees, we can then move on to getting some of the more complex bees like the redstone, the wither skeleton, the ghast bees, all of this stuff here. We can start using those to actually generate a bunch of resources more automatically. Specifically, getting something like an iron bee would be super useful. It would mean going forward, we don't have to worry about sifting so much gravel in order to get all of our iron. And the iron bee doesn't seem too difficult to get. We can get it by breeding together a sieve bee and a sand bee, which again, both of which don't seem too bad. Does the sieve bee require like an actual sieve? It totally does. What does the sieve bee produce? Chat is telling me the sieve bee produces nothing. It's just for breeding. Oh, I see. Because things like the sand bee, of course, are used to produce sand combs. Like they do actually produce a comb that you can use in a centrifuge to produce sand, like to produce something, right? So going forward, as we get a wider variety of bees, as we get sand bees and snowball bees and redstone bees and wither skeleton bees, we're going to start to get different combs. Those different combs are going to want to go through a centrifuge as well. So we're going to want to get more centrifuges and more power to be able to process all of those automatically. We can also look at getting into things like the big multi-block centrifuges that we have both here and here. There's a regular and an elite version, which I assume are bigger and faster and maybe come with more features. I'm not too sure. I've not played with them yet. But I do believe if we want to get into the bigger centrifuge, we're going to first have to get into some immersive engineering, because to make the centrifuge controller, we need centrifuge casing, And to make that, we need a block of steel and an energizing orb. And the block of steel is going to be made through, I believe, the blast brick. So yeah, I think we'll come back next time. We'll look at breeding bees. We'll look at maybe getting a coke oven and a blast furnace from immersive engineering. We'll also potentially look at getting the energizing orb from Powah as well to see if we can't start producing some of those items required at least to make the higher tier of Centrifuge. And eventually we'll look at getting into apiaries as well for even better bee breeding. Between streams, I'll probably keep doing more of what I've been doing. I'll keep breeding the bees here, hopefully try and get up to 16 so we can fully utilize this tier 4 beehive. Maybe look at making a few more beehives as well, and really just trying to get as many bees as I can in here. For now though guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's stream there.